Sox in the basement.
Munetaka Murakami. Work on that name. I've been working on it all day, my friend. And then after I worked on it using AI to make sure I was doing it properly, the press conference happened, and I had to make slight adjustments. And I'm sure I'll have to do it.
And then all of a sudden, you're being corrected. Yeah.
I'm just going to work on it, okay? But Murakami gets signed by the White Sox. It's a shocking move, I think, for White Sox fans, because I don't think that we believed that the Sox would go out and spend money. And it's a 2-year deal, and we're going to get into the deal. We're going to get into the good, and we're going to get into the bad, and we're going to get into the why, and we're going to get into the what's going on behind the scenes in the front office, because some things were revealed. I don't think they were meant to be revealed, but you can do a lot of reading between the lines and looking directly at quotes from the press conference that give you the entire picture. First, let's talk about the player. This is a guy who played in Japan for years. He's still young. He set their home run record. He's 25 years old right now. You've signed him to a 2-year deal. A lot of folks in baseball had him projected for one of these big, long deals. I want to say Fangraphs had him projected for 7 years, $154 million. Okay. There were all kinds. I think the median that people expected him to make in his first deal being posted from Japan before the window closed, and it almost closed on him before he takes the White Sox deal, was at least $132 million guaranteed. The White Sox will give him $17 million a year for 2 years at $34 million, which is shocking to me that that's where he ends up, because you have to believe there might have been different deals that were out there for him, but he comes to Chicago. He spoke with, according to Munetaka, he spoke with several Japanese players who talked up Chicago as a great place to start if you're coming over from Japan. These players all played for the Cubs, it sounds like. But that was an interesting thing to me, Ed, is that, we've seen this before, too. We've seen this in interviews with Tadahito Iguchi, who won a World Series with the White Sox. The Japanese community is pretty strong in Chicago, and players coming over to America for the first time like to come to the Windy City.
Yeah, there's several places around the area and in the suburbs that are, they have Japanese markets. They have the food, the culture, everything is here. So it's a nice little transition piece. And, it's also, this is a prove it deal, okay, for a guy that is going to be under some level of scrutiny. Yes, he did 2 years ago win the Triple Crown in Japan with a 318 average, and that's when he set the home run record with 56. And the problem is that he strikes out a lot. He does not have a good defensive position.
29%, I want to say 28% over the last couple of years with the strikeout rate. Not very good defensively, but I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing that excites me, my friend. Okay, if you allow me to jump in there for a second. What excites me is after he sets that record, he's still a guy who's going to hit 30 home runs a year. He's still a guy who's getting on base at a really good clip. And I went through a Fangraphs report on him as they were trying to figure out what he projects out to. And they talked about the Zips projections, and then they talked about their, I want to call it an OOPI or OOPSI projection that they use in Fangraphs, trying to figure out what's going to happen. And one of the things they admit in the article on Fangraphs is that it's very hard to judge Japanese baseball players when they come over, because some of them come over and it would suggest that the drop-off would say that Japanese baseball is similar to AA. Then some of them come over and the drop-off would suggest, based upon models, that it's actually AAA or slightly above AAA. And looking at all the data of all the players that have come over, they're basically saying at this point, at least on Fangraphs, that that baseball league is probably at this point slightly above AAA right now. That their teams would more than likely be AAA teams more often than not if they played each other. And so using that and trying to project him out, what they've come up with, and it's interesting, two different projections coming up with about the same thing from him. We're talking about a guy, I want to say that Steamers got him at a 112 WRC plus. That's the low one. weighted runs created. Zips has him as a 126. Fangraphs is using it as a 123. The consensus seems to be that he'll probably hit around 220 to 230. He'll probably slug 450. He'll get on base at about a 350 clip. He could end up better than that. And if we're talking about that, we're talking about a guy with an OPS that's going to be over 800. He's going to hit over 30 home runs, at least 30 home runs, and play first base for you. And if I get that from him at $17 million a year, I'm happy. That is a nice signing. The 2 years is the only thing that concerns me, because if he actually turns out to be that good, or better possibly, I don't know if you're going to be able to sign him for more than 2 years. And you may be sitting around looking to trade him before his second year starts or midway through that second year, unless you can get him on an extension. And we're going to get into it, but that smacks of the problem with Jerry Reinsdorf as the owner, because I would have liked them to take a little bit of a bigger swing here and give him more than 2 years.
But I don't think that that's the White Sox not giving him that. I think that's the that's the majors as a whole not giving him that kind of an offer, because, like you said, he's an unproven 25-year-old. Call him AAA player, and one of the things that they look at when they scout these Japanese players, when they scout from the KBO, okay, is when they're facing competition as a hitter, are they facing fastballs on the level of velocity that you face in the majors? Because let's face it, that's what Major League Baseball pitching is high velocity fastballs, right? Nobody throws under 95 really. And if you do, you're an anomaly. You're like, it's like watching Charlie Huff if you've got some guy that just throws 93 with his fastball. The other thing is that the secondary stuff, the breaking balls, changeups, things like that, the spin rates that are generated in Major League Baseball compared to around the world, compared to the minor leagues, the breaking stuff is so much more explosive in the majors than what you find elsewhere in the world, that the question becomes, and this is absolutely what the knock, everything that I read about Murakami, this is the knock on him, is he even going to make enough contact for the power to matter? So the Zips projections, all these projections are really probably pretty good in terms of like the lower batting average and what he's going to do there. The real question is he going to make enough contact to where he's going to even get the 30 home runs? And for the White Sox, he represents an opportunity to come here and show that, yes, he can hit major league pitching and he can hit it with authority, and he can be a guy that gets to that 230, 240s level with the 30 plus home runs. And, his RBI totals are going to be up to the rest of his team. I hate that part of the Triple Crown. But if he can show that he can hit velocity, if he can show that he is not susceptible to hard breaking stuff, or he's not susceptible to the massive difference in a changeup versus a fastball in terms of velocity and movement, then after those 2 years, he's going to be 28 years old going into that third season. He's going to want that big, long. That's when he gets his 10-year contract. That's what he's aiming for. He's taken 2 years to transition with the White Sox, to sit there and say, I'm going to get used to being in the majors. I'm going to get used to living in America. I'm going to get used to this game. I think this is all he wants. If you think that's it,
you think he was like, I don't want to do the 7-year deal and be done at some point. And I mean, that's a lot of money, but he's looking long term. You're saying, I'll take the $34 million because my hope is that when I'm 28 years old, I'm going to sign a $200 million deal. I'm going to sign a $250 million deal, $300 million deal. He's betting on himself.
And he's going to learn at the major league level with the White Sox. That would be the bet. Versus, let's say he goes to a contender. Okay, let's say he goes to the Red Sox. They were another team that was mentioned, and then the Red Sox turn around and trade for Wilson Contreras, so that first base is an issue for him. The Red Sox might look at this and sit there and go, we're trying to get an AL East crown this year. We're trying to get back into the playoffs. The White Sox would love to, but they're not. They've already openly said, we don't expect to. The Red Sox have that expectation. If Murakami struggles coming out of spring training, if he struggles in spring training, if he is having a hard time adjusting to the major league game, they're going to put him in AAA. They're going to have to. They're going to have to put him in the minors, contract notwithstanding, to try and get his swing right, to try and get him to a level where he can compete. The White Sox, if he struggles early on in the season, Chris Getz isn't going to send him down for Tim.
No, he's going to keep playing.
He's going to keep playing. Yeah, he's going to keep playing. And they're going to work him over with whatever Ryan Fuller's got in mind for this guy, whatever the coaching staff can do for him. They've got a coaching staff that is built on development now. They're going to sit there and say, we are going to let this guy sink or swim at the major league level. And at a 2-year deal for the White Sox, you look at it and you go, over the next 2 years, if we can convince this guy that he likes it here, maybe we have an opportunity to extend him. Maybe we can find something. If they don't, what's the risk? This guy comes out and he looks like he's going to bust out at any moment. And you sit there and you go, okay, who wants him? And then have teams come and give you young, controllable players for a while. Okay, that sounds fantastic to me. I mean, I don't think it's a losing proposition, but you're right. If he does come out and he hits really, really well and he becomes an established star in the major leagues, it would be a shame to lose him after 2 years. But that's the Jerry thinking, and that's the Jerry effect. And we have to, 2 years from now. I mean, we're at a point where, honestly, 2 years from now, tell me who owns the team, because I'm not guaranteeing anything.
And where are they at in 2 years? They should be really good at that point in competing and able to absorb that loss, because they've added more players and they have a better idea of what they want to do in terms of building for the long-term runs of being a competitive team. That's what you're hoping for. For those of you out there looking to switch to a new age of life for mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, getting them out of assisted living, keeping them out of there, make it so they can get around on their own and live independently with Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. They have stair lifts, ramps, grab bars, lift chairs, and even bathroom remodeling. They work with your insurance, have 0% financing for qualified individuals. If you use a CPAP machine, or you know somebody who does and you're unhappy with your vendor, switch now, get supplies directly mailed to you, and they have the latest and greatest in continuous glucose monitors and so much more. See what Hyatt Home Medical Equipment can do for you at hhme.com. Let's talk about Jerry Reinsdorf and his influence on this deal, because Chris Getz is nothing but honest, and I feel like he leaves breadcrumbs for those of us that are trying to find out what's going on actually behind the scenes. And remember, Getzy talked about this at one point, maybe a year or so ago, when he first got in there. The idea of you have to present something to Jerry Reinsdorf that makes sense to him, that you almost have to come up with a presentation like, this is how we benefit by doing this. And if you look at some of his quotes, and I'll take them from Scott Merkin's Twitter, because he was putting them up as they were going along. Here's one for you from Chris Getz. Quote, got Jerry up to speed on the reality of bringing him in. The more he was hearing from me and Brooks, he's referring to Brooks Boyer, on the marketing front and the international impact that can have in bringing in someone as significant as Mune, led us to the finish line. Chris Getz had to go find Brooks Boyer and say, draw up something that explains that if we bring in this international superstar, Jerry will make more money.
Right.
That's the reality of how he got him for 2 years and $34 million. And if you think about that, we've talked about this forever. $15 million a year for Benintendi was a run-of-the-mill normal Major League Baseball contract. $7 million a year for Murakami is a normal, basic run-of-the-mill contract that every owner in the world, when their GM walks in and says, I'm signing this guy for 2 years and $34 million as the starting first baseman, should shrug and say, well, that makes sense, and just move on. But what Getz has to do is he's got to go get Brooks Boyer. I mean, it's right here in the quote. He's got to go get Brooks Boyer and say, Brooksy, Getzy and Brooksy. They're all, I'm going to do this with all their names from now on. Okay. Brooksy, I need you to come up with something. I need you to show something from a marketing standpoint that if we bring in this superstar from Japan, we'll sell more jerseys to Japan. We'll get more Japanese fans at the ballpark. We'll get more subscriptions to our television service. He'll make money back. And this long term is good financially for him, no matter how this guy performs. And that's what they had to go and do. And that's what it's like having Jerry Reinsdorf as your owner. I mean, there are some people who will be like, oh, this is Chris just hating on Jerry Reinsdorf. No, this is Chris just bringing up what this is. Like how this works.
Yes.
And that this general manager, again, is demonstrating he understands who his owner is. He's figured out how to talk to him. And he said, man, I need to sign this guy. How do I get the old man to give me $34 million? And he pops into Brooks Boyer's office and goes, we need to come up with something.
Getzy gets Brooksy, talks to Reinsy, and gets Mune.
Yeah. And that's what they did. It's Getzy plus Brooksy equals Moonsy.
Yeah. And Rhinesy Pop for the check. I mean,
it really,
yeah, it really is. It's one of those things where you can't ignore the fact that they're not giving $17 million a year to a major league free agent, right? This isn't Ryan O'Hearn.
I get that.
Yeah. Ryan O'Hearn didn't get $17 million a year from him. I'm not sure Ryan O'Hearn's worth $17 million a year, but he didn't get $17 million a year to come here. They're looking at this. I mean, it's a business marketing strategy involved in having a star Japanese player, not just a Japanese player, but a star Japanese player come over here. And you're going to have a hard time convincing him on any of the star Japanese pitchers. Okay. That's going to be a hard one because the competition for them, they are going to get the 7 years. They are going to get the 10 years right off the bat. Someone's going to give them whatever they want. They're just going to hand them the blank check and the blank contract, tell them fill in the terms. I'm signing you. But again, for a player who comes in where the rest of the league is looking at this going, he could be great or he could be just, an absolute nightmare. We don't really have a good feel for how he's going to adjust his game to the major league game. Yeah, for 2 years or for at least next year, you're going to have White Sox jerseys selling internationally. You're going to have, the app is going to be sold out overseas for people who want to watch this guy and get an opportunity to go behind the paywall to see White Sox games because it's not geographically bound.
They won't be able to see the press conference though, because reportedly, even if you were paying for it, you had to be in a specific geographical area to see the press conference. Like if you're going to have an app and you're going to have a pay for watch thing with a team, maybe provide the content to everybody. Like I saw the complaints on Twitter and I was like, what are you doing? So you got to fix that because now you're going to be selling your app in Japan. I mean,
well, yeah, and or you're going to get whatever revenue comes from
the Japanese the Japanese media group that pays for the rights for it,
or that you get from the game cast and everything through MLB.com.
But that's the thing. There's money to be made here before he even swings a bat. And you had to convince your owner that there was money to be made here before he swings the bat to get your owner to pay for that. So, I mean, we've been wondering what the payroll number is, but remember the whole fluid thing? This is the fluidity.
This is fluid. Yeah, this is the fluid right here. The fluid has hit the floor.
Right. This is what the fluid is. We were trying to figure out he has a number, but it's fluid. Well, this is Chris Getz creating fluidity. He's sitting there saying, okay, I know you said I could spend this much money, but what if I was able to make it look like this? So on Getz's ledger, when he talks with Jerry Reinsdorf, this probably reads like, yeah, it's $17 million, but it's really only $5 million because Brooks Boyer told you're going to make $12 million a year off of the fact we signed him.
Exactly.
See, and that's the fluid right there. We figured it out. The mystery is solved. That's what this is. That's what makes this so much fun. Like, I'll be honest with you, it'd be a run-of-the-mill podcast if we didn't have all this extra stuff that we get to decipher. Like, this is the fun part about doing this. It's the understanding of who the owner is and how things are working behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? That's the puzzle that we get to unlock, twice a week, every week, is just what exactly is going on in the brain trust at 35th and Shields. Because, if we're just Dodgers fans or we're Royal fans, we're sitting there going like, yeah, they made some additions, they made some subtractions, they traded Dustin May for this guy, and it looks like a good deal and everything like that. We're going to win the World Series next year anyway because we've already bought and paid for it. But that's what we're looking. I mean, no, you and I, we get to sit here and we get to figure out why it is that the biggest contract in White Sox history has a bad Achilles heel and was supposed to be their DH, but now they've signed an international star who's probably going to have to DH because he can't allegedly catch anything. Although we'll see how he does at first base.
I think he'll play first base.
I think he'll play first base as well. I think that's the plan for him.
I think he's going to be the first baseman. It's just going to be bad defense at first base.
Which you would have gotten with Lenyn Sosa, but not nearly with the ceiling that this guy brings.
That guy's out. Lenyn Sosa's out.
Lenyn Sosa's got nowhere to play.
He's got nowhere to play. He better show up with a right fielder's glove or so. And they might not even have that for him. Sox in the Basement listeners trying to make the most of your money. Give a call to Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor. Located on the corner of 111th and Kedzie, but serving the Chicagoland area, Tom has a get-to-know-you approach and a do-the-right-thing attitude. He's been doing this for decades. It's all about knowing your options when you're investing and planning for your retirement, no matter what stage you are at. It costs nothing to check in with Tom. Give Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor, a call today, 773-779-0023. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Did you see another signing? This is very, very smart.
Yes.
This is what they're doing. And it doesn't mean that they won't go out and sign a free agent for the outfield. But what's going to happen is it's going to be very similar than all the arms that are going to be competing for rotation spots and long relief and bullpen and everything like that in spring training. There's also going to be a number of outfielders on the cusp trying to make this team. Guys who were very, very close to the majors and may have had a taste at the majors and have a lot of potential that they've signed to a minor league deal, like Dustin Harris, who now rounds out the 40-man roster. They will have to release somebody if they make any more additions, and I think they will. So you're going to see more upheaval on this roster throughout the offseason. Dustin Harris, if it's a minor league contract, not on the 40-man. It was Murakami. No. So Mune, as he wants to be called, he was the 40th guy.
Yeah, he's your 40th guy.
Sorry,
Dustin Harris is
Harris, minor league contract. Dustin Harris in AAA Round Rock last year, 26 years old, hit .285 with a .369 on base percentage, a .435 slugging percentage. He had a cup of coffee in the major leagues. He comes out of the Rangers organization. He has had a total of 21 games and 50 plate appearances in the majors where he only hit .217 with an OPS of .715, which is at least league average. Had a couple of home runs in there. His minor league numbers over 6 seasons, .284 with an .820 OPS. A guy who in the last 2 years in AAA, actually in the last 3 years in AAA, .273, .272, and most recently .285, the average he was hitting. And when I look at, you mix these up. No, that's right. And then when I look at his OPS, .836, .749, .804, his last 3 seasons in AAA. Now, if we look at what Murakami's doing, and we were just talking about how you project guys out, and he's getting, 19 home runs last year, 22 the year before that, he's going to compete for a spot in the outfield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You have another guy on the cusp. We've talked about this now for years. It's so hard to trade for close to major league ready hitting. It's easier to do with your pitching than it is with your hitting. Teams don't normally let these guys go. This is another guy, 25 years old, I think about to turn 26. It'll be officially his year 26 season next year, that you just went and grabbed. In fact, he just turned 26. I'm sorry about that. He's 26 years old right now.
Yeah, he'll turn 27 during the season.
In the middle of
July.
the season, yeah. But here's another guy, young enough that we may not have seen all the potential. Center field, left field, has done a little bit of first base. He'll go out and compete to be in the outfield. I love this.
I do too.
This is how the Rays operate. This is how teams that have to deal with budgets operate, and it gives me hope that we're doing things like this.
Well, and it's similar thing with Tristan Peters in terms of the numbers, where this guy does not strike out a whole lot. Had a good batting average in the minors, his minor league career, .284. That's pretty good, and not a ton of power. So he's not a potential all-star, but we were talking at the beginning of the offseason about Ryan O'Hearn, and his name's now come up a couple of times, but that type of a hitter where, makes contact, doesn't strike out a ton, overall just a solid all-around presence at the plate. There's nothing wrong with having a couple of those guys on the team. And you've got the big home run potential now with Murakami. You've got the big home run potential with Colson Montgomery. You're trying to fill out high on base percentage, low strikeout, high contact guys. And you've traded now for 2 from the Rays organization in Pereira and in Tristan Peters, and now you've got Dustin Harris. And they're trying to create competition because in the outfield, they don't have anything else much going on. And if you include the Oliver Dunn signing on a minor league deal, if they feel like Oliver Dunn's got something, another gear that he can step up and he can be a major league contributor at third base. Miguel Vargas has played the outfield before. He played it with the Dodgers for quite a bit of his career. And he's a candidate to be moved to the outfield, not just Lindin Sosa, who, again, even if he shows up with an outfielder's glove, may not have anywhere to play on this team. So you've got all of this competition coming in with young players. And don't forget about guys like Curtis Mead that they traded for last year that could also claim a spot. What Chris Getz is doing is he's saying, okay, I've got a certain type of player, a type that clearly has enough juice to be on a major league roster somewhere, but has been squeezed out. Oliver Dunn squeezed out by Caleb Durbin in Milwaukee, who is just a higher ranked prospect, had some success, was actually supposed to be a second baseman, but took over third base for them. Dustin Harris, there's nowhere to play in Texas. That's a stacked team. There's nowhere for him to go and play on that team. The Rays, they move players in and out and shuffle guys in and out that they just had 40-man roster crunches. And Chris Getz has taken advantage of that by saying, here's two prospects that the Rays clearly saw something in because they went out of their way to acquire them. Peters came from the Brewers organization and Pereira came from, I believe it was the Yankees. And they just don't have room for him because they've found other things that are more important to them. And so he's taking advantage of not Rays cast-off necessarily, but guys that they had to let go. So this is exactly what Chris Getz should be doing at this stage of the rebuild, is sitting here saying, well, look, if I can't, or if Murakami is my one high ceiling potential all-star signing, okay, then what I've got to do is I've got to create competition where I've got guys that are going to come into spring who are major league ready, who are here looking and hungry and need to take that next step for their baseball lives. And if they do it and they can establish themselves here, I got them. Okay. I've got them. They're here. In some of these guys are going to be controllable. It's something where he can start assembling a roster around the guys that we've already identified as stars, which are the Kyle Teals, Edgar Carrolls, Colson Montgomerys, Braden Montgomery when he gets here, Chase Mydroth to a certain degree. But the guys that are established on this team that you're going to sit there and go, these are the mainstays of the lineup. The Dustin Harrises of the world need to be here too, because you need to have production at every spot on the field. And the time has come to sit there and say, look, if you're not going to get your shot elsewhere, come and take your shot with the White Sox, because if you establish yourself here, you are in a position to be kept around, and this team is going up and going somewhere. So, I would, in some ways, I'd rather have a Dustin Harris than a Ryan O'Hearn, because Dustin Harris is going to come in and sit there and go, I've had my taste of it. I don't like the way I played for Texas. I don't like the way my 21 games have gone. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to do everything I can to bust myself to make this team and be a starting outfielder on this team, or at least be the fourth outfielder on this team. And we still have yet to see what's going to happen, ultimately with Luis Robert Jr., which is only going to create more opportunities in the outfield if he goes, because if you've got guys that are ready and willing and able to take his place right away, not at his star power, you can afford then to go to teams and say, okay, I'll take prospects that are a few years away that might have higher ceilings and might have, higher floors even, that can be the next wave of players that come up. And I don't have to worry about getting somebody who's going to step in right away, because if I've got to see if Tristan Peters and Brooks Baldwin can work out in center field, or Everson Pereira can work out in center field, or even Dustin Harris, I list him as a center fielder here, then cool. I'll do that. I'll roll with that for this year while Colson Montgomery establishes himself as a star, while Murakami establishes himself as a star, while Kyle Teal and Edgar Carroll give me a huge, tremendous, wonderful problem behind the plate. That it's all good stuff.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.